Hi, and welcome along to the All Guns Blazing podcast with my boy, DT in the building. What's up? Look at his little smug face. What's up with you?
Nothing. I'm all right. I'm good. I'm all right. Just thinking about our little conversation last week. Do you want to reveal the poll?
The poll?
Yeah.
The poll last week, 73% of you agreed with DT, 27% of you agreed with me. And the point is?
What's that mean? Splendid. People agree with me because they can see that I'm right. You know, I think the 20-odd% was probably you. You sit there reading to yourself over and over and over. You know what I mean?
As I said to you, right? For me, I notice with you, everything's, let's do a poll. I'm not trying to win popularity contests, right? What I'm here is I give my opinion on something. And you know what? My opinion may not be always with the majority. The majority ain't always right. Most popular restaurant in the world is McDonald's, yeah? Right? But they don't make the best food. So the majority is not always right, mate. So, you know, I respect those people's opinions. But for me, let's just remember what's happened this week, yeah? You're talking about L's and stuff like that. As I said, it's not, for me, it's not an L. It's people's opinions, right? Let me just break down what's happened for you, what's happened this week. The government have now come out and they basically said that no sport can be played at all until at least June, which is when the football authorities are looking to bring it back for, remember. But football won't be played until at least June. And then when June arrives, if the conditions are safe, this is what they've been saying all along, basically, if the conditions are safe, they are happy for games to be played behind closed doors. Yeah, and Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of the country, even went on to say that he thinks football coming back will help to boost the morale of people in this country. Not just football. To be fair, he didn't just say football, he said sport coming back. So as I said, and this is all I was saying, I think a lot of people actually, they didn't really understand what I was saying last week. I'm not saying to rush football back, but I'm saying that when it's safe, let's do it. And there's nothing wrong with having a plan to get football back in a safe environment. That's exactly what I said last week. I haven't changed what I'm saying. And that's what the government are saying. And that is the sensible thing to do. So that's what's happening. Football, if it's safe, and obviously they're going to be keeping an eye on what's happening over in the Bundesliga, which again, that's returning this weekend. No doubt you won't be watching it, yeah?
Why wouldn't I be watching it, Robbie? Stop trying to...
You shouldn't bring football in it. Don't bring it back in it.
Whoa.
Let me ask you a question. One second, let me just finish here. If football does come back in June, you won't be watching it then, will you?
Why are you coming out with some of the most stupid comments I've ever heard in my life? Why would I not be watching it? Just because I think it's coming back too soon does not mean I don't want to watch it.
You've been a hypocrite then.
I love football. I love nothing more than football to come back, but I want it back when it's safe. Yeah, right. There's a difference, Robbie.
So the government.
And listen, in the words of Danny Rose, yeah, I couldn't give a fuck about.
He didn't exactly say that.
Morale. I couldn't care about the public morale. Who cares? I care about the figures that are dying. I care about the people that are dying. And in my opinion, even in June, middle of June, is still too soon for me.
You're a doctor.
I don't need to be a doctor. I look at the facts and figures and see. You know, don't tell me to listen to the advice of the government when they've done nothing but get it wrong in the first place. They tell you to listen to the scientists. Well, at the beginning, they were telling us that we were going to go with herd immunity. And this is what the scientists were telling them. Then a man is now sitting there telling us to go and do all these steps, shall we say, these next, you know, the getting out of the lockdown, shall we say. And a couple of weeks ago, he was fighting for his life, you know, and I'm not going to listen to these people that have got it all so wrong in the first place. What I'm going to look at is the facts and figures, and the figures are there's too many people dying. And I don't think football should be played right now. Doesn't mean I don't want football. Doesn't mean I don't want to.
They're not saying to play it right now.
No, I'm saying even in a couple of weeks' time, Robbie, it's 2 weeks until June. 2 weeks. All right. No, I'm telling you, my biggest concern, yeah, and I can see it already, and maybe I'm looking at it in a different angle. A lot of people understand and see it in the same way. But we're going to go into a second spike very soon. Because like I've told you many times on this podcast, we are in a country full of prats. All right. I've seen it already. Boris Johnson's speech, right? If there was one thing that I could actually gauge out of the speech was that the new rules and what he put into place start this Wednesday. They don't start immediately, like tomorrow morning, Monday. Yes, we're going to start going back Wednesday. By Monday, people had started going back to work and doing the things that were not even in place. Wednesday. They clearly told you Wednesday. Yet by Monday, the tube is rammed, buses are rammed, shops are rammed again, because people are carrying on like, oh, yeah, it's fine, it's normal.
Did you go on the tube?
No, I've seen the videos. I've seen the videos. I've seen the videos on social media yesterday.
That's every tube, yeah. Every tube was rammed.
Robbie, the majority
of following headlines, man.
The Northern Line and that. It was rammed. People were just doing the normal things. I've seen it in shops already. People are sitting there. There's shop workers. Remember, my son works in a shop security as well. So I see the difference in what actually goes on. And already within the space of a couple of days this week, we're not even at Wednesday yet. Shops are busier. People are starting to just come out like it's normal. One of the things that Boris also turned around and said, and the reason why he left it to Wednesday was because he was going to use the next 48 hours, Monday, Tuesday, to actually set out a detailed analysis of everything. So you had the basis of it on Sunday, and he was going to pull it all into, you know, detailed plans so that we can all
50-word document.
So one of the things he said is that if you go into places where, you know, social distancing is difficult, like shopping, for example, then you should wear a mask. But if anything, people are going into the shops and they're not wearing masks. There was more people wearing masks a couple of weeks ago than there are now. This is what I'm saying. We will go into a second spike. We will go into a second spike.
You're making a lot of assumptions based on, you know, you're this typical guy. You'll get a headline or a video or something like that, and you think, oh, the whole of England is not sticking to the rules, right? You know, you have to be very careful of stuff like that. Very careful of receiving videos and just going by that. Now, what I would say to it is that listen, don't get me wrong. I do think the government have not handled this coronavirus well. And I think that will come out whenever we get to the end of this, right? But what I would say is this, is that they said that sports can resume after the 1st of June in their phased thing. However, they've quite clearly said that if things start to, you know, if cases are going up, if we're not seeing it still coming down, right? And they're talking about the infection rates, right? And the infection rates have dropped a lot, right? But they're saying if it starts going up, starts getting out of hand again, they won't let football come back. They won't let any sport come back. So it's not this. This is where you're misjudging the situation. They're giving a timeline for gradually getting things back, but you're just assuming like they're saying, oh, as soon as June the 1st comes, we're going to be playing football. They're not saying that. They're saying
soon.
You're not a doctor.
Neither are you.
Exactly. So that's why I have to go by what the experts are saying. I can only go by. Listen, hold on.
No.
I can only go by. Let me say.
No.
Let me say something. When this thing first began, there were people coming out saying, "Oh, it's a hoax. Oh, it's not real. Oh," they were going down. Even when we were going to football, right? Me and you, we saw people, probably us included as well. We were even like a joke. Oh, you can't shake hands. Oh, do your elbow. Remember, there were players, even after they were told, don't shake hands and stuff like that, they were still hugging each other. They were still shaking each other's hands and stuff like that, even though, because nobody took it serious. When the doctors and the health people were saying, yeah, this is a serious thing, man. Then now when people started dying, that's when. And remember, when they were doing their projections, when they first started saying, you know what, at the moment, like people, I remember in the early days, people looking and saying, oh, what's the problem? There's only like 100 people have died. Look, it's 60 million people in this country. What's the problem? And those same health people were saying, well, within the next 3 weeks, we're looking at our charts, we're going to have like way over 1,000 deaths. We're nowhere near, we're not even near the peak yet. We're not even, remember they were saying that, and people were saying, oh, what? Nobody was believing them until the 3 weeks came. Robbie. And they actually saw the rise, right? So if these same people are now saying to us, right, you know what? Rates of infections are coming down. The hospitals are beginning to cope better with the crisis. Not every hospital, but a lot of hospitals are beginning to cope with it. The special hospital that we built in London, we put it on a standby because it's not even really needed at the moment, not full-time at the moment. And we feel that if these rate of infections continue to drop like this, when we get into June, we can bring football back, right? We can bring sport back, but in a controlled environment, behind closed doors, with these restrictions. If they're saying that, who are you to say it's too soon? How do you know? How do you even know when it's coming? You don't even know when it's coming back yet. You Robbie, don't know when it's coming back. How's it too soon?
You're going to be quiet. You're going to let me speak because I know you like to talk a lot, right? You've just quite clearly missed out one key thing there. You seem to think from the very beginning, the people within power and the people that know have been advising us correctly. They've not been advising us correctly. From the very beginning, the medical experts and the people connected to Downing Street were sitting there telling us that there's nothing to worry about. They were the ones that were telling us to carry on. Boris Johnson himself sat there in a press conference and said that he has been to a coronavirus award with patients and is openly shaking their hands.
Idiot.
NHS staff saved his life because he was on death's door. So from the beginning, Robbie, they weren't telling us all these,
I just said it. They made loads of mistakes.
They were telling us from the beginning, do not worry. Don't panic. It's fine. Tell me why, right? Over 100,000 people since we've been in lockdown have been coming into our airport from coronavirus riddled countries, and there's been no quarantine, and they've just been allowed to run free. And then this week they go, you know what? I think we've got to put an actual block on airports and put people into quarantine. You're telling me to trust these people that have done everything.
Wait a minute.
No, I'm not trusting these people because they're all in together. They want football to come back for money.
Wait a minute, yeah.
No, if players don't want to play, then they've got every right to refuse to play.
Of course they do.
And the club cannot stop their wages.
Well, I would. If the government, so let me just go back to your first point, yeah. I'm not here to support the government, And yes, they have got loads of things wrong. But whose guidance do you follow? Who are the people that have got the facts and figures? Who are the people that have told us to go into lockdown in the first place? Who are the people running the country? Who are the medical experts? All we can do at this moment in time is follow what they are saying, right? We are almost at their mercy at the moment. We can only follow by what they're saying because I'm not a doctor. I don't know. So I can only follow what a health expert says and tells me to do, right? That's number one. Number two, if footballers don't want to play, of course they shouldn't have to be forced into playing, right? Just like if you had to go to work on Wednesday, Thursday, and you refused to go into work, you couldn't be forced. But at the end of the day, if the government are saying the conditions are right, and then your employer says, right, we put into place all the measures that have been recommended to us by the government, and we need to get this business back on track and make money, and you refuse to come in, why should you get paid? What is it? What's the difference? I see Danny Rose coming out and saying, well, it shouldn't be spoken about, right? What makes him any different to, say, a construction worker who's having to go to work right now? The government have said to some of these, government have said to these construction workers, for instance, they said, look, anybody who can't work from home, time now to return to work, right? But under these measures, don't take public transport unless you have to, wear this PPE, blah, blah, blah. They've brought in measures, right? But a construction worker, a guy's working on a building site, basically, he's got to go back to work. What's the difference with footballers if the conditions then, the government has said, we think these conditions are okay for you to go back to work, and then they turn around and say they're not. Now, they could have a reason, but how do you expect to get paid? The construction guy ain't going to get paid, is he?
Well, first and foremost, footballers are not an essential part of life, and they're not part of the British economy to get things moving, whereas the construction industry will be, right? The construction industry is more. Now, let me explain something to you as well, because there's such a thing called the Employment Act, Robbie, all right? And that's what you have to go by. And you know what? Just for you, I brought it up, just so you can see. Now, Section 44 of the Employment Act, all right?
Good now, are we?
I know. Wait, listen. If you're going to come into a debate, listen. Don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Do you know what I mean? Listen, right? Section 44 provides employees with the means to contest the adequacy and/or suitability of safety arrangements without fear of recrimination. Example: getting sacked or transferred or suffering detriment. Example: loss of wages. Section 44 provides employees with the right to withdraw from and to refuse to return to a workplace that is deemed unsafe. Employees are entitled to remain away from the workplace, example, stay at home, if in their opinion, the prevailing circumstances represent a real risk of serious or imminent danger, which they could not be expected to avert. Section 44 entitles employees to claim for constructive dismissal and unlimited compensation in the event that an employer fails to maintain safe working conditions.
Okay, and if the government, and that would be the government, so, you know, well done for reading out that document. So the government will say to these construction employees, football clubs, whoever, these are the measures that we expect you to bring in to ensure the health and safety of your staff.
But
right?
there's still dangers.
Hold on, wait a minute. Right, no. you know, I'll let you talk, right? Right? So they will say to them, these are the measures that we expect you to take to ensure the health and safety of your staff at work. Yeah, I studied health and safety a lot when I worked as a surveyor, right? If you don't adhere, if they break any of those health and safety measures, that employee is well within his rights to not go to work or to even sue for loss of earnings or if he weren't paid or whatever. If everything has been adhered to what the government have stated, so whether it be a football club, whether it be a construction site, if they've carried out, you know, a shop, if they've carried out everything that the government has instructed them to do, and you then still refuse to go to work, they can turn around and say, we're not paying you, right? Because we have done everything. The government have said, these are what we need to do in order for you to go back to work. And they would have done that. That's where you, as you quite rightly stated at the start, they've got this 50-page document that they brought out outlining all the things. They would have sent things to employers, telling them what they need to do before their staff need to return back to work, including football clubs. And if all those things are in place and you refuse to go back to work, that company could turn around and say, well, I understand what you're saying. You don't want to work, but we're not going to pay you. Then there's number two. Number two is this, yeah? The company can go out of business. yeah, and just lay off staff. In that case, there's no money, there's nobody to get paid, you're just out of a job. If a company goes bust, go and speak to a lot of people who've been in companies that have gone bust, where they've just laid everybody off, right? You're just out of a job, right? And that's what could happen to construction companies, to shops, to restaurants, to pubs, to football clubs. Nobody's immune to this because at the moment, the economy is at a standstill. So this is why the government are trying to get the economy back and things going again. Now, whether they're rushing it back or not, I don't know, because I'm not an expert. All I can go by, as I said, is by what they're saying. And if they're saying at this stage that come June, sports can return under a safe environment, which should be behind closed doors, without a crowd, following all these measures, right? I'm sorry, then those players would have to return. And you're picking out Danny Rose, right? But I can tell you, I was chatting to somebody at Arsenal last week, and he said to me that the players are chomping at the bit to go back. They're so bored and fed up. The players want to go back. So for every Danny Rose, there's many other players who want to play. It's always easy to pick out one person and say, oh, Danny Rose said this. Danny Rose is not every single footballer in the Premier League. A footballer coming out and say, you know what, I really would love to go back and play, doesn't make a good story. So that probably...
Cool. It's ironic that you should say that because Matteo Guendouzi is one of the players that's got concerns about returning.
Concerns? He didn't say he didn't want to play.
Not everybody at Arsenal, all right, because you're not the only person that knows people within Arsenal. Not every player wants
to Guendouzi.
Not every player wants to return immediately, Robbie.
You spoke to Guendouzi, did you?
I never spoke to Guendouzi. It's common knowledge in the press.
But listen, and that's the other thing, right? Stop headlines. I keep telling you about this headline.
Headlines. It's not headlines.
Everybody's concerned. If you speak to a player and he ain't concerned, then there's something wrong with him. Everybody is concerned. Every footballer, every construction worker, everyone's concerned. Then they'll write a headline with that. Guendouzi's like to make it out like he's saying he's not going to come back. He's not saying I'm not coming back. I'm concerned. Concern means I want to know more. I'm a little bit worried. I want to know more. You know, reassure me. There's nothing wrong with that. That's natural.
Robbie, don't keep comparing all these different businesses to football because football's not even close to them in the scale of things. There's a reason why the government have brought the construction industry back because they need it.
You said
I've seen you not comparing the NHS, police force, all sorts. It doesn't even come close to being compared to.
You just sat there and you said football doesn't do anything for the economy, right? But yet still, a couple of weeks ago, when you were defending Özil, you're there saying, listen, the amount of money of his taxes that go towards the economy, wasn't that you who said that? Now all of a sudden,
to the economy. No. His tax goes to the government. Yeah? His tax goes to the government, Robbie.
Yeah? What's that for? The economy. That is the economy.
What the government do with that tax? None of us know. For all we know, government tax goes on Big Ben and decorating the Queen's Palace. That's what the tax goes on.
You're losing it, mate.
Richer. That's what our tax goes on. So there's no contradiction there in any way, shape, or form. You need it. You need the vodka more than everyone.
That is the economy, DT.
Listen to me, Robbie. If football was a necessity, if football was a priority, football would be back by now. The government would be doing everything to push it right now. But they're not. They're not in any rush because it's not more important than construction.
They're not in any rush. You said it yourself.
They're not important. Football is not as important as emergency services, construction, teaching, all this kind of stuff. And also, you're telling me to listen to the government, yeah? Let me explain something to you as well about some of the guidelines they set out, yeah? Still not allowed to go and see our parents, yeah? Still not allowed to go and see them. Cool, all right. But you're allowed to have a cleaner come in your house. You're allowed to, if you employ a cleaner, they're allowed to come into your house now. So my mum and dad can't come and see me, but some random cleaner can. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm employing my mum and dad as my cleaner so they can come around my house. But how did it work? Seriously, you expect?
I don't listen. As I just said to you, I'm not here to defend the government, right? The government have got a lot of things wrong, and I agree that you know, the thing that they brought out the other day. I mean, even that message, "Stay alert." I still don't know.
Stay alert.
What it is, you know what I mean? There's too many slogans.
What's that? Hold on. Oh, it's coronavirus over there.
Yeah, I mean, I was very confused by that. But all I can, as I said, as a ordinary person, right, all I can do is go by their guidance at the moment, because they are the government, and we have to go by their guidance in times like these. They will be judged when this thing finishes. That's when we're going to really, I mean, they're starting to get judged already, because when it first sort of all came out, there was, which is a natural thing that always happens in these crises, is that there's a lot of sympathy towards the government, and there's a lot of sort of rally round the flag, let's support the government. But as time goes along, people then start to say, well, hold on, you made a mistake there and you've got this wrong. And it could be a mistake to make anything return. But at the moment, they are the experts, they've got the medical people, they're the ones, and if they're saying to people that on this date we feel now you should go back to work, it's all right for you guys, for everybody to go out more than once a day, we have to go by what they say. That is, you know, you can turn around and you can say, no, you know what, I'm staying in, I am not going anywhere until we get a vaccine. But you could find yourself out of a job.
I'm just making,
you know what I mean? That's the reality of it.
Well, look, they've just extended the furlough scheme until October now. And there's going to be no changes in the furlough scheme until the end of July at a minimum. And then they might vary it given where we are as a country. But again, the furlough. Robbie, look, there's so many things, yeah? Like, I've joked about this, right? And you've joked about it as well. We've got kids, right, that are in school and everything else, right? Now, I don't know about, I think your boy's too old. He's the same age as one of my sons. And I think he goes past when they said schools are starting again at the start of June. It's reception and whatnot. So it will affect my 4-year-old. And he's supposed to go back to school, if all goes well over the next couple of weeks, around the start of June time. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, really? Schools can't control head lice. How are they going to control the coronavirus amongst 4 and 5-year-olds? Stay 2 meter distances and everything. I'm not sending my boy back to school. No way. No way am I sending him back to school. And I'm not the only parent that thinks like that.
You have to wait and see what. Don't you have to wait and see what the situation is first?
Yeah, but do you really think that it's going to change in the space of 2 weeks' time?
No, I don't know. Do I?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
Over the last 2 weeks, isn't it?
Look, the one thing that ain't going to change in 2 weeks' time, Robbie, is social distancing. All right, that's not going to change in 2 weeks. Social distancing ain't going to stop in 2 weeks' time, and we're all allowed to hug each other and life goes on as normal. That's not going to change. All right, I just cannot sit there and get my head around 4 and 5-year-olds being let back into school. For me, that's a breeding ground for you know what I mean? It's
going back to.
You see, when your kids are growing up with the flu and all this kind of stuff, they go to school and your kid comes home because someone else has had it and they've got sickness and diarrhea and head lice and all this madness that they catch in schools and that. And then you're like, yeah, it's fine. Go and deal with coronavirus. Behave yourself, man. Nah, mate, I'm not sending my kid to school.
Wait, going back to football, yeah?
Yeah, right. Sorry.
When do we start? When do you think we should start about them?
Me personally, right? Now, I've got to make this very clear, yeah?
Realistic date.
If you were to turn around to me right now and you say, we'll suspend the season and go the same way that France and Holland have so that we can fully prepare for next season, but we've got to give Liverpool the title, cool, give Liverpool the title. Don't have relegation. Don't have relegation. Go on. No, but that's what I'm saying. That's the only way you're probably going to do it.
What do you say to Lee?
Robbie, look, one of your arguments last week was about the neutral venue thing. And apparently it's 4, 5 or 6 teams that don't want neutral venues. It came out yesterday that every single Premier League team doesn't want to play in a neutral venue. all 20 Premier League clubs have said, we don't want to play at a neutral venue.
They haven't said they won't play in a neutral venue.
No, not one.
They prefer to play at their home ground.
Yeah, but hold on. You've got to remember.
Which is
no team has said they won't. No team has flat out refused. All right. But what I'm saying is all 20 teams have said, we don't want to. We want it arranged home and away.
Yeah, but everybody would want to play on their home ground. And as that police guy said the other day, some of these football clubs need to get a grip. Because again, because of the exceptional circumstances, you might not be able to play on your home ground because we're not going to be able to stretch it so much that we've got so many police and that to look after all these different football teams. And if you don't relegate nobody and just give Liverpool the title and you don't relegate nobody, what do you go and say to Leeds in the Championship? We was far ahead now, looking like dead certs for promotion. We'll come up, we'll have, all that access to all that TV money and stuff like that. What do you say to them?
Right. Well, this is the thing, yeah. Some of obviously this hasn't been confirmed yet, but a lot of the talk this week is that League One and League Two are going to be done. They won't be able to get that done. All right. So League One and League Two are going to be out of the window. So what do you say to the likes of Brentford and stuff like that are flying away and having Coventry City, for example, teams like that are having brilliant seasons. And then it's like, sorry, we're in unprecedented times, Robbie. So the issue is that we can sit and have this argument on every podcast and nobody will ever be happy.
Exactly.
One of the variations that they were talking about is maybe extending the Premier League to 22 teams next season, so that the top two, if you're going to go by the points to game ratio, which is the way that UEFA have said you've got to deal with your leagues if you don't finish them, then Leeds would go up along with who's second? Is it West Brom? Well, yeah. So those two would come into the Premier League. And they would make up an extra two sides within the Premier League. And listen, Robbie, it's unprecedented times and somebody's going to lose out somewhere down the line. Arsenal, for example, right? I don't care how many people want to laugh at this, yeah? But we're not far away from European football. Let's not even mention Champions League for a minute. Let's just say European football. We win our game in hand. We're in a European place. That might be the Europa League, but that's a European place. That's a lot of money to Arsenal in terms of competition and prize money and everything, yeah? If the season finishes now, we go by the league standings. We're not in European football, right? So we're going to lose out, all right? But I'm not trying to have this argument because I want certain people to lose out here or there. I just personally feel from a moral point of view that the season is too soon.
Do you not see, after all those little permutations and you giving this one that and taking that away from that one and giving this one, do you not see now why they want to get the season finished? If it's safe to do so.
I can see why. Don't get me wrong. I can see why. But
so why are you having it? Why are you? So hold on. Wait. So why are you accusing them all of being greedy then?
Because, Robbie, the be-all and end-all, the main reason why they want to complete the Premier League is because of money. Because if they go and cancel League One and League Two, right, that means that every division from League One all the way down to grassroots has just been brushed aside like it's nothing. All right? What is the difference between the Premier League and League One or grassroots? There's no difference because they're all teams. You know, they've all played competitions throughout the course of the year. They all have different, objectives. They all have different motives. They all earn different amounts of money. But you're a football club governed by the same organization, equal for all, which is what you're always told by the FA, from grassroots right up to the Premier League. They encourage referees now that start out in the grassroots game to go and make it all the way up to the Premier League. It's the same kind of scenario. You can work your way up through the divisions. There's no difference. It's the same organizations. So why should they get the priority and these clubs just brushed aside like
each league?
is where the money's at. That's why
each league organises itself. So you've got the Premier League and then you've got the EFL, right?
No, but Robbie, the main organisation that runs everything is the FA.
Yeah, but who decides whether those leagues will be completed or not? Well, number one. Hold on, number one. Well, it's the government is number one in in the scenario that we're talking about, and in scenario number two, it's the Premier League that's deciding what's going to happen with the Premier League. It's the Premier League that are discussing with the teams about neutral grounds. It's the Premier League that's discussing with them about whether there should be more substitutes. That is the Premier League are discussing that with Premier League teams. The EFL will have separate discussions with the EFL teams.
It's the FA that governs them, Robbie. It's
the FA is the overall governing body,
and they're the ones that make the final decision.
But the discussions regarding neutral grounds and that has been done by the Premier League.
Yes, because they're the ones talking about that. They're the ones talking about that. But what I'm saying to you, Robbie, if they turn around this week, let's say for argument's sake, they say League One and League Two, we can't get it on. It's not safe to do so. We don't know when it'll be back. Our resources don't stretch that far. Well, I'm sorry, but if you say that to League One and League Two, you cannot turn around to the Premier League and say, you know, you can't say, yes, we can guarantee everyone's safety in the Premier League, but then say to the League One and League Two and go, sorry, it ain't safe at the moment, so we're going to have to scrap your season.
Well, no, you did.
The way, man, the balance ain't right. It should be equal.
You're twisting it up. You just said.
It's simple facts. It's equal for all, Robbie.
No. Hold on.
No, right? It's equal for all. Equal for all.
You just said if their resources don't stretch. You just said it. That would be what the case would be if their resources don't stretch.
I'm not on about the club. I'm not on about the club. I'm on about the government turning around and saying it's not safe at the moment. We haven't got enough police force. We haven't got enough NHS workers that can go to your games and everything else. Well, I'm sorry, but if there's not enough emergency services to make sure players are safe on the pitch and everything, like ambulance workers, police forces and everything else, you can't then turn around to the Premier League and say, oh yeah, but we've got them for you.
But like you said, they might have more resources to organize those things. In Germany, it's Bundesliga 1 and 2 coming back. Not every single grassroots team, not every single team lower down the pyramid. The same in Spain. It'll be La Liga that's coming back and not every other. It's just how it is. Like you said, unprecedented times.
It's money. And that's what the be-all and end-all is. The main factor behind this is money. That's what the be-all and end-all of it is, because those are the
obviously money.
The Premier League and the Championship are the two.
Money plays a part. Money plays a part because, you know, if the Premier League, for instance, doesn't finish, just the Premier League, we're not talking about the other leagues now. The Premier League, if they don't finish the league, they'll owe back to the TV companies and over £1 billion. They're going to lose about 300 million anyway because of the change in the schedule and stuff like that. But they'll have to pay back over £1 billion. And as I said, when people start to lose their jobs at football clubs, it's not Stan Kroenke, it's not Josh Kroenke, it's not Raul and those guys that lose their job. It's the guy who works in the armory. It's the guy who does security at the ground. It's the guys at the training ground. It's the guys. It's all of those, the regular people that lose their jobs first. Stan Kroenke, Josh Kroenke, KSE, the execs and all that will still be here next year, right? But the first people to lose their job are those people. It's in the interest, right, of everybody at that football club to play the season and get it completed so they can get money. And it's not, you can't just put every bit of money down to greed. It's being sensible. Try and finish the season. They're really going to lose loads. They lose, you know, how can you say it's greed when they're going to lose loads of money by not? If they turn around, hold on, DT. If they turn around and they said, "No, we want fans backing," and they did all these things against the rules of the government, that would be greed, because that'd be like, oh, you know what? You don't care about people's lives.
They physically won't be able to.
Care about people's lives. You basically, that's greed. But right now, I don't look on this as greed. I look on it as you're sensible. You're trying to keep your business afloat. You're trying to keep your business afloat. You're trying to not make people be unemployed. Why do you think they ask players to take pay cuts and things like that? They're trying to keep the thing afloat. Why do you think players have deferred wages and all that? It's to give to those people that the first people who'll be out of a job are those people. This is what you don't understand. So it is a sensible measure. It is a sensible measure, right? To if it is safe, and the medical people and the government say safe, to complete the season so that you can keep the club afloat, keep those people in a job, so that we can start to build back slowly but surely.
Almighty, man. First and foremost, the new rule that's just come in anyway with the furlough means that nobody's going to be out of a job until October.
If Arsenal go and furlough their staff now, a couple of weeks ago, everybody...
You're not listening. You're not letting me speak.
Sorry, speak.
Right, so I'm saying, right, that there are clubs in the Premier League, like Norwich, Bournemouth, etc., who have furloughed their staff. All right? Now, Arsenal won't need to furlough their staff, in my opinion, because we're owned by a billionaire and he's got plenty of money to pay his staff until October. All right. Also, I do know someone that works at the club, and they said that the club shop online has been absolutely booming. They're not making money, Robbie. No, they might not have the match day revenue and everything, but please don't make out there's a hardship. Please
what about all the people on DT? What about all the people who physically work in the shop? They're not working online. Online is a different operation. Online would have existed.
They're still getting paid. They're still getting paid.
Yeah, but I'm saying, right, they can't get paid forever. And you were the first one. Hold on. You're the first one.
No. Wait a minute. Let me finish my point, because what I'm trying to say to you, Robbie, is that the staff, right, now there's a guideline from the government and they've said, right, to the end of October, we're going to review it at the end of July. So now clubs that have set up payment schemes by themselves for their employees, right, will now look at that and say, do we extend that till the end of July, or do we now go for the furlough scheme? My opinion, all the big clubs that are run by billionaires, you don't go for the furlough scheme. You've got no need to. I'm sorry, you haven't.
Couple of weeks ago, you and me, I'm not gonna be a liar or a hypocrite on this, having a pop at football teams in the Premier League for bringing in furlough, and then they had to reverse it. Right now, you're saying, "Oh, don't worry, there's furlough there." Make your mind up. That's what I'm saying. You keep jumping left and right.
You do it all the time. You put words in my mouth. I'm not on about
what words.
Where have I once turned around and said I'm on about the staff of Arsenal?
No, any club. You just said.
I'm trying to explain to you what I'm not saying that furloughing staff is right. I'm saying that as an employee, you now have that cushion there to know that if your employee decides to not pay you, they will do the furlough scheme, right? So rightly or wrongly, Robbie, this is not the argument I'm having here. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, because it is wrong, and I've said that. What I'm saying is, as an employee, you now have that sense of like, okay, cool.
You had it from the beginning.
I don't need to worry now. I don't need to worry, because the club are either going to keep continuing to pay me, or I'm going to get put on the furlough scheme if it continues up towards October. So there's that reassurance to make people not panic so much. One of the reasons why the government have done this is because they don't want people unnecessarily going out to work when they don't need to. The guidelines were clear. The guidelines were very clear, which is only go to work if you need to. But some people are going, my furlough runs out at the end of the month. I've got to go back to work. There's nothing I can do. I have to work. And I get that. So now the government have turned around and said, no, you don't. The furlough is going to be extended. So you that have thought to yourself, I need to take that risk and go to work because I need to provide food on the table, will now be able to go, okay, cool. I don't need to make that risk. It's not a necessity to go to work. Technically, Robbie, me and you could go to the offices in London because we're allowed to travel now. We're allowed to travel. We can go wherever we want. I can go to the beach, wherever. Doesn't matter. We can travel. We can go and meet up at the offices in London And as long as there's social distancing in place and everything else and the measures are adhered to properly, we can work together. We can do a show together. But can we work from home still? Yes, we can.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Yeah, right. So you're right. Me and you could go to the office and we could do a show, as long as we socially distance. But I had this discussion with my guys yesterday, and I said to them, but for us, we're still going to work from home, because the government said, if you can work from home, work from home. If you can't, you can return back to work. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can a footballer work from home?
No, but they also shouldn't go and work if it's not
Can
safe.
a footballer work from home is what you just said.
But hold on, Robbie. If it's not safe to go into that
hold on. Wait a minute.
Oh, that's where you're not listening. No, Robbie, listen. It's not safe to go in that environment.
And safe at the moment. At the moment,
decides right now. Yeah.
Say that again.
You're missing the argument, because I'm trying to say, right, they're talking about the middle of June. The 16th of June is the date that they're banding around. So you're talking 3 weeks or so away, 3.5 weeks, something like that. Do I, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, feel that it will be safe to play football in 3.5 weeks' time? No, I genuinely don't.
If it is safe.
One of the main reasons for that, Robbie, is, again, I will revert it back to the fact that we live in a country full of prats.
All right.
Because what's going to happen is that we're going to have a second spike in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and I think we're going to be back to square one again.
Let me ask you this, right? If it is safe on the 16th of June, if it's safe, right? Health officials, government officials say safe. There isn't another spike. Is it then safe to go and play football behind closed doors?
If it's safe and the numbers...
No, hold on. We've just the officials. Hold on, the officials.
I'm answering your question, Robbie, but you're interrupting again. I've said if it's safe, if the numbers are completely down. Also, there's a moral obligation here. Yeah, if they make the right, answer me this, Robbie. If they make the Premier League safe, yeah, if they make the Premier League safe, so they say it's okay to come back to work, it's safe and everything else, but there's still 600, 700 people dying a day. Do you think that's morally right that we should be playing a game of football? No, not in my opinion. I'm sorry, but I just believe that
the problem with what you...
If the numbers went right down, fine. I've got no issues with it if everything's safe. But the one thing that I will stand by is that even with all of these in place, if a player still turns around and thinks, I don't want to risk it, I'm still not safe, then you cannot make them play and you cannot force them to take their wages. Because as Section 44 said in the Employment Act, it's down to the employee, not the employer, right, as to deem whether it's safe. So if an employee, yeah, i.e. a footballer, says, you know what, I still don't think it's safe. That's the rule, Section 44. Go read it up yourself, man.
Shop steward. Yeah, I never fancied you as a union rep.
Hey,
right?
listen.
Listen. Do you hear what you're saying? Do you hear how right?
Listen,
you know your problem is that you're basing everything on today. The government, and I'm going to repeat this, it must be about 10 times I've said this on the program. They're saying if we get to June and the cases are still falling, the infection rate is still falling, we're going to look at it again. And if things are safe, we are going to say to players, you can return to play football behind closed doors as long as these measures are put in place. And I've just agreed. Yeah, and it's what I've been saying since the start of the program. And for me, that is the sensible thing to do. It's not greed. That's the sensible thing to do. All right, you yourself now. And the problem is you're looking at a situation in the future, and you're looking at it like it's happening today.
I'm not looking at
what it will be like on June the 16th.
Don't make me turn around and start talking to that again.
Yeah, I think you should just talk to that permanently.
What did I just say to you?
Just talk to, but you and the world's more intelligent than you.
Don't make me bring Nicolas Pepe back in, you know.
Yo, you know what? I'll tell you what. I actually think that's what you do a week.
Listen, what did I say to you? Yeah, I said if the numbers are down, if the infection rate's down, if everything's down and they decide it's safe, cool, that's fine. That's where we are. But Robbie, ask me this question. Robbie, you're clapping yourself, mate. Do you know what I mean? Is that what you do every Thursday at 8 p.m? Clap yourself. You know what I mean? Right? Listen, let me explain something to you. If they make football safe, right? If they say, right, we've got everything in place, the guidelines are there and everything else, blah, 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 and it's all there. But the infection rate is still high and the death rate is still high. Should football go ahead?
No, I don't think they'll play. I think it's
morally right.
The one thing Boris Johnson said the other day, which I said right at the start of the program, is he said they're going to look at it again. And he said, if things are going back up and down, he said, you remember he's doing his little free punch in the table and that, he goes, if it's going up immediately, we will go back to these measures. Lockdown and that. He's made it quite clear. So it's quite clear what they're saying. If things at the moment continue, you know, they kept showing this, the R rate of infections, if that is still going down and it goes down sufficiently that we think is safe, we'll play.
You mean the nanos?
And people, you know, we'll start relaxing measures and things like that for different people. He was talking about the possibility by July of opening back bars and pubs and, you know, in stages, right? But if it's not, and things are still bad, and he said it will be back to lockdown. They made that pretty clear. So that's what I'm saying. I don't understand when people now are getting together in the Premier League, right? And they're trying to work on ways of bringing it back as long as things are safe. I see nothing wrong with that. There's too much negativity around where people like to criticize people. And to me, that's called leadership. In the midst of chaos, the leader is the person who takes a step back and says, right, how do we get through this? What do we do in this scenario, that scenario? How can we get back to normal? If the right environment is there, if the right circumstances are there, this is how we're going to start moving to get back to normal. That's the leader. The person who's not the leader just sits there all day long. Oh my God, I just turned on my TV, man. Jeez, it's bad. You know what I mean? When Doozy's concerned, you know what I mean? No.
A leader.
I like solutions, man. Solutions.
Oh, here we go with his solutions.
I like solutions. What are we going to do forever? Are we just going to... That's why I was asking you if you're going to watch the Bundesliga, if you're going to... Because you don't seem to want it to come back.
Completely different, Robbie. You're trying to say that I don't want football back. No, I don't think football should be played when there's so many people dying.
I bet you any money on your channel this week. You'll have watch along. Yes, DT. We're watching along Dortmund versus... You've lost all sense of like morale in your mind.
I bet you're doing that, ain't you? You're doing that, ain't it?
Robbie, you don't understand. You don't care. Just because, right? First and foremost, I've not even been speaking about the Bundesliga and that because Germany is a completely different situation. And ironically, the moment Germany start lifting, rules and lockdowns and everything else, the infection rate has started to go back up in Germany. And Dynamo Dresden have had to, go into isolation for 14 days. So there's still concerns, even in Germany, in a country that is more under control than the UK in terms of the virus. So this is what I'm trying to say. I don't want football to come back when it's not morally right, in my opinion. Doesn't mean, let's please get this into your head and don't even joke about this, yeah? It's not that I don't want football to come back. I love football. I miss football. I wish that I could I even tweeted it out a few days ago and I said, despite the problems we've had this season, despite the fact we're 9th in the league, I'd love nothing more than to watch Arsenal again. I'd love it. I would absolutely feel so blessed to watch it again. But I only want to see it when it's safe in terms of the whole big picture. Not it's just safe for footballers and there's 500-600 people dying. I want everything.
Nobody wants that.
I want, yeah, exactly. But this is what I'm trying to say. So me having this argument and me having a stance on what I believe in doesn't mean I don't want football, because you couldn't be any more far from the truth. I can't wait to, not just Arsenal, I can't wait to get back playing with my team. You know, I've already got pre-season games in place already. I've organised like 7 games. Robbie, you have to. This is the difference between me and you. See, you're not listening. What don't you understand, Robbie? What don't you understand?
Hold on, wait. Let me talk. Can I talk?
No. Let me explain something. Right, this is why my team's successful and your team that's been run for 3 years is a million miles behind us, yeah? Because it's run correctly. Now, football in non-league, grassroots and everything else, Robbie, like it or not, yeah, you have to plan ahead. You have to plan ahead. So what you have to do is that you have to plan pre-season fixtures in the hope that everything will be fine by then and we will be allowed out and play. I'm not talking.
Let me ask you a question.
End of August, start of September is when people are looking at. And that's what everyone's doing.
Let me ask you a question. So it's all right for you to plan ahead. It's all right for you to be organising friendlies for your football team and that.
Robbie,
when it's the Premier League now, they're being greedy. Right? You contradict yourself so much.
Contradicting myself.
Oh my God, man! Honestly,
I will find out the definition of contradiction. August, September. You're not listening. There's a difference between penciling in a normal grassroots game at the end of August, September, to trying to start a Premier League in 2 weeks' time in the height of the virus.
Yeah, How do you know in August? How do you know in August it'll be all right?
We don't. What
are you organising friendlies for?
Because the leagues have told us to. Because the grassroots leagues. Because what happens is, Robbie, is that eventually we want to get back to. You don't understand, and this is why AFTV will never be successful. Because you never had on the coach, you never dealt with the team, you never organised enough games. You didn't even supply your team with a tracksuit.
You're switching now, yeah? Oh, you lost. You lost the argument completely. You have sat here. Hold on, let me talk now. Seriously, let me talk now.
No, you're trying to mock me.
Hold on.
In 3 months' time. 3 months' time, Robbie. 3 fucking months. 3 months. When we're supposed to be over, not just the first spike, but the second spike. If you listen to the government guidelines, Robbie, they're talking about by July, for teams to be able to start joining together again and having training sessions and that. These are the government guidelines from the other day, Robbie. July.
What's the government guidelines at the moment for the Premier League?
No games.
Right, nothing. And what's the government guidelines if conditions are good? Come June, what are the government guidelines? What they said quite clearly.
What I'm doing
exactly. So what you're doing. Let me just finish and talk. Right, you said a lot. Right, what you're doing is the same thing as what the Premier League clubs are doing. It's basically they're making plans. Let me finish for a second. They are making plans, right, to organise and get the season going if it is safe to do so. Exactly what you are doing with your team. You contradict yourself, right? When they do it, they're greedy. Hold on. When they do it, they're greedy, they're insensitive.
Oh my God,
this, that. But you're doing the same thing.
You're trying to compare the Premier League to grassroots. Nobody gets a fucking penny out of our friendly games,
So what's the rush then?
Seriously, man.
What are you rushing for? What are you organising games for?
We're about rushing. Everybody's doing it because everyone's trying to have something.
We put your players' lives at risk for, according to you.
Trying to look forward to in 3 months' time when everything is over. Hopefully.
Oh, it's going to be over.
Not in the middle. It won't be over, Robbie. In 2-3 weeks' time, it's not over. It's not the end of fucking August, is it?
So in August, it will be over.
If we follow the guidelines, it could be.
Could be. Or would be.
Could be. Could be.
How do you know?
We don't know. No, we don't know. So again, stop trying to pin things. You're trying to twist everything to suit your agenda.
All I'm trying to say to you,
no, because you'll do the same again. Is that when you put
let me talk. Let me say something. Right? All I'm trying to say to you.
Man. Let me
all I'm trying to say to you, right, is that it's sensible. That's what he does when he loses an argument, right?
Nobody loses an argument over.
Let me just explain. Let me just explain something and let me talk, right? Basically, what you're doing is a sensible thing to do. You're planning for the future if things are safe to do so, which is exactly what the Premier League clubs and all of them are doing. They are planning for the future. When people like Danny Rose say we shouldn't be even talking about football yet, he's chatting absolute nonsense, right? Because what they are trying to do is put plans in place in case it is then safe to return to football. If it's not safe, you'll be given the government guidelines and you won't play. You were there at the start of this show saying that it shouldn't be played, it's not going to be safe, and now you're predicting. You're not a doctor. You're predicting by August it will be safe. Hold on. Wait, let me finish. I'm not finished yet. You're predicting that it's going to be over in August. How do you know? Who are you to say that?
There's a huge difference between the end of August to the middle.
No, but you just said, according to you, there's going to be a second spike. So how do you know? Didn't you say this? You said there's going to be a second spike. In your opinion,
people carry on the way they're carrying on.
Why are you then making plans for August? Shouldn't you wait then?
Oh my God!
I'm saying you contradict yourself. There's nothing wrong.
It's the middle of June. Fucking hell, man! You don't listen. You genuinely
you don't. Listen. You talk so much, you don't understand what you're saying.
Honestly, you don't listen. There's a big difference between trying to start up a game in the height of everything or trying to organize a game when everything should be over.
You said there's going to be a second spike.
It's no different to the guidelines that they've done in France and what they've done in Holland, which is no sport until end of August, September. Yeah, end of August, September, which is the same thing that we've done.
No, you planning friendlies for August.
The end of August, I said.
Right, and also, and as I said,
in August, which is 2 days before September. But again, they're only preliminary games, just in case the nation is fine by then, and we can get.
And it's exactly the same thing with the Premier League. That these are preliminary plans.
Middle of June, in the middle of what we're going through, we're losing fucking hundreds of people a day.
DT, they are making plans for the middle of June if things are safe to do so. Exactly what you're doing, making plans in August if it's safe to do so. And not only that, you're making these plans after you yourself said you don't think it will be safe because there's going to be a second spike. I don't understand where you're coming from. Yeah, I mean,
a second spike in a couple of weeks' time because it takes 2 weeks for the virus to start to take hold and for it to be out there. I'm on about the way people are behaving right now, that there's a second spike predicted because over the next 2 weeks, we live in a country full of prats that don't listen and adhere to the rules. So in 2 weeks' time and going forward after that, you will start to see a spike if people don't listen, which is why the government have said in 2 weeks' time, which is the 1st of June, we're going to look for the next phase. You remember they brought out their little Nando's chart, yeah? About real spicy, lemon and herb. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So there you go, Robbie. It's like, fucking hell, man. Oh, listen, I just want lockdown to continue because I don't want to fucking sit next to you. You piss me off, man. You piss me off.
What I challenge you to do is listen back to this podcast, and then when you do that, right, get a little list and list down how many times you contradict yourself.
Nobody contradicted themselves. You only have to look. People again will call you out for what you said and that because it's the same, Robbie. I don't want football while it's not safe. Whilst it's not safe right now, we are in the midst. Now listen to me, yeah. If for example, I was going by what the plan's saying, which is in July we can start training again and everything else, blah, blah, blah. And I was organizing things straight away for them. You could sit there and say, hold on, we're in the midst of this. We could be in the midst of a first wave, a second wave, or whatever it is, yeah? So we're advised, plan right at the very end, when it's all predicted by the government that it should curtail in terms of, you know, their graphs and everything else, right? Because if we abide by the law and do everything right, Robbie, then by the 1st of July, we're going to start opening shops again. We can start getting our hair cut. You're not you because you're bald, right? We can then we can do all of those you know, the normal things. Pubs might be able to open within distancing, social distancing.
I said all this earlier, yeah.
So what we're saying is that when we're looking to plan is when all of it's supposed to be over, way out of the way. They're trying to plan. We're in the middle of it. There's the difference. In the middle, at the end. Middle, end. It's not morally right to have it in the middle.
But you're the owner and manager of your club, and you, the owner and manager of your club, said that there's going to be a second wave. And if there's a second wave, with
3 weeks' time.
The second wave will bring us back to square one, and then you want to play in August.
Whoa, Robbie.
Anyway, you know what?
If there's a spike, listen to me. If there's a spike, then that 1st of July will then transpire to the 1st of August. Everything.
Let me just say, football clubs at the moment, from what I can see, are being sensible. They're not even training together at the moment. They're like at Arsenal, players are going in one by one to train, and they've got grounds where they can make it as controlled as possible. Yeah, they're following the government guidelines. They're saying that come the middle of June, when they hope to start, if conditions are right, they will play games with no supporters behind closed doors. Right? It's not greed, in my opinion. It's them doing what is right to try and get the game started so that they can survive, pay players, pay staff, and continue on as a football club, right? And as I said last week, and I maintain it this week, I don't look on that as greed. I look on that as being sensible. I look on that as, you know, taking all the appropriate measures to return, because we need a return. There has to be a return. The virus might turn around and say, well, actually, you're not returning it, and get bad again. If it does, then there'll be no football. That's been made clear by the government, the health officials, and everybody else. But if things get better, and by the middle of June, it's appropriate to do so, I have no problem whatsoever with us playing football. And people got to stop making predictions on things that ain't even happened yet, you know? So, and it's the same for your team when you come back in August. You're saying it'll be all over. You don't know that. I don't know that. Nobody knows that. I hope it will. Hopefully it will be.
Guidelines. I'm following the government guidelines, which they set out the other day, and which every other club is doing. You know, that's what happens when you have a team. You make sure they're organised.
Yeah. Anyway, we've come to the end of the.
That's why we're.
Sorry.
That's why we're.
We come to the end of the show today. We come to the. Oh, here we go.
That's why we're winners.
How many people touched that? You better get it cleaned, right? We've come to the end of the show today, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the debate. We'll be back again on Friday, Saturday.
Have you seen how long this show's been going on for? I want a bonus.
Because you're chatting so much rubbish.
Nah, mate.
As I said, go back and see how many times you contradicted yourself.
Do another poll.
No more polls, man. I'm fed up with you and your polls.
Yeah, because you can't win. You can't win.
I told you already, I don't care about polls. People sit down and make a sensible assessment of it.
You can't beat me in a football match. You can't beat me in a race. You can't beat me kicking the ball in the back of a convertible car.
I've beaten you enough times over things, mate. Don't worry about that. Right? Anyway, thanks everybody don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget this podcast available on all your normal formats, and we'll be back at the weekend.
And can I just say, before you say that, make sure you subscribe to me as well, because I'll be doing a live watch along for the Bundesliga.
The coronavirus has not just affected the world of football, but has affected everybody. But you know what? We can defeat it. If you're displaying any of the symptoms, always make sure that you self-isolate. I know it's a terrible time, but we will defeat the coronavirus. We will be back.